5 games to the end of the season. Is it the time Amad Diallo finally makes his full debut for Man United in the English Premier League? Welcome to the United Hotspot. My name is Webb. Here is the match preview of Man United up against Burnley this Saturday. A very important game for Man United. We gained some bit of momentum after pushing through to the FA Cup final and then beating Sheffield the manner we did, not the most convincing. Obviously, it looks better than we hoped it would be at this point in time, considering how poor we were performing. But can you believe that Omar Fosun, Willy Kambwala have all made their first full debuts for Manchester United before Amad Diallo? Well, could this be the time the boy finally gets his chance? Honestly, we saw how Amad Diallo really impacted the game when he came on as a substitute in our win against Sheffield United. Everyone where I was, and I'm sure it was the same story with you, you were seeing the same thing, that from the start of the game, Anthony Dos Santos was playing negative passes, negative pass after negative pass. He had no right to be starting ahead of Amad. No wonder Erik Ten Hag quickly into the second stanza pulls him off when we had considered, I think, the second, then brings on Amad Diallo. And didn't you see the impact? From that point, I think, up to the end of the game, United were all over Sheffield United like a body rush. How do you reward such a player for their good performances? They should be starting. To be honest, I personally feel like we might be, I think, introduced to an attack that might excite us and give us something to smile about until the end of the season. Well, there might be not so much for us to smile about as we go into the end of the season. And in one of my next videos, I'll be giving you a serious breakdown of our transfer budget that has been confirmed by Ineos, and it doesn't look exciting. But for this particular case, let me focus on the game. So you think that the fact that we may not have so much money to spend in the summer transfer window, we want to give a chance to as many partnerships that could make sense for us next season as possible, especially in the areas we deem important. Now, when it comes to the back line, I think it's good news already that Lisandro Martinez and Luke Shaw are likely to return before the end of the season. Obviously, when they are there, we know who is starting where. With the back line, it's clear and it's done. But when it gets to the attack, we are still confused because of this Marcus Rashford, who is responding to fans on Twitter for attacking him for his poor performances, and his presence costing so many other good players. So is Anthony, who flatters to deceive, comes up, has a decent game, comes off the bench and changes a game against Liverpool, but then all the rest of the games is playing negative passes. And you're thinking, what is the fascination with this player when you've got Amad Diallo, who has come out, played few minutes, probably the least minutes of all our players in the senior team, those who we feel have got to come on and have minutes, but he's making impact that is convincing so many people that he should be starting. So what do you do as Erik Ten Hag? You need to start preparing these players now, so that when you go into the preseason, you have a proper idea. And it is believed that Ineos are slowly leaning towards keeping Erik Ten Hag, which I think is okay to hear. They are leaning more towards keeping him. So for me, my thinking is Ten Hag should start preparing for next season now, that as other teams are battling for places, for us, we are testing our players, testing partnerships, and so that when we get into the preseason, there is already a bit of rhythm and momentum. Again, the players know how Ten Hag wants them to play. It's easy for them to fit into whatever he will be building, so that when we start the season, we get off a flying start. We will be ahead of everyone else. That's, for me, what I think we should be thinking about now. That's futuristic thinking. We are in this season, but you're thinking about the future. It is where we are. We've got to swallow humble pie and accept the fact that we need to just give up on this season. Yes, we can. There are teams like Burnley are teams we should beat with whichever trials we make. And there are not so many changes between the so-called starters and the Amads who are coming off the bench. So why not give these young Amads a chance to come out there and play? So my expectation is that, and it's highly likely that it will happen, Erik Ten Hag might be forced to start Amad Diallo, because Anthony did not in any way impress. I'm sure now that there are people like Jason Wilcox, who is the technical director, he will have a say. These guys have been watching these games, and he will be having a say saying, why is Anthony, who is not delivering, starting ahead of this boy, Amad? There was talk that I read somewhere that probably Amad Diallo has got a clause in his contract where we've got to pay his former team Atlanta a lot of money whenever he starts a game. That's why we are limited in how much we use him. I don't think it makes sense. I think at this point we need all players who are signed and contracted with Man United to be playing. So I will not buy that theory, but I read it somewhere. But you also know that the two guys that were fired, Richard Arnold and John Mata, were a bit crazy like that, that they are guys who could go into such negotiations and discussions with players and clubs. So it's possible that that's the deal that Amad signed. And perhaps it's why his performances have been limited to a few cameos off the bench. So but the reality is, you saw that Hoyland opened up when Amad came on. You saw that Bruno opened up. He was more expressive when he was enjoying himself more. You saw Garnacho being, again, now more pushed to create and be more animated. It brought a different feel, a different life to our game that I thought for me is very important. And when you have so many skillful players like this just behind your very good forward, it's always going to give you many dimensions to get goals, because you know that Amad and his good ball work will make Kobe Maino trust him more, pass the ball more to him. Those are more opportunities. You know that Amad can win us free kicks. And you know that Bruno, on a good day, can score a beautiful free kick or should take a shot that can, force a rebound, and Hoyland will be in place to tap it in. So there are lots of positives we benefit from trusting Amad to start a game of football. And really, against the second from the bottom Burnley, this is, for me, I feel, is a decision that should be easy more than ever for Erik Ten Hag. This should be so easy for him to do, to trust this young boy to come out and start. Now, if that doesn't happen, I'm sure even Amad himself will be feeling it, will be seeing it, that really he deserves to be starting. He will be frowning, and again, it goes back to man management. We're at a crucial stage here where some of these players who feel they should be playing more should be given the chance, because if we get into the summer with Amad not getting enough playing time that he has already earned, it is highly likely that the boy will try to force a move away from Man United. And of course, the people with their egos will say, who cares? Let him go if he doesn't want to play. But look, we need some of these young players because we don't have a lot of money to spend. So we need some of these young players to be happy and want to play for Man United. And the only way you're going to keep them happy is by giving them the opportunities they deserve. That's the most important thing. Give them the opportunities they deserve. That's it. So if we don't give them the opportunities that they have earned, it is okay. They have every right to be frustrated. And already I've told you how Facundo Pellistri's agent, was not happy about the treatment of his player. I'm very sure Amad, you saw his behavior on social media recently, until Erik Ten Hag was forced to start now giving him more minutes. But the guy was rotting on the bench when Anthony was doing absolutely nothing on the pitch. So these things are crucial as we head into this phase, because there are so many options out there. Amad can happily go and play football at West Ham. He will play at West Ham. There are so many clubs. If Man United put Amad up for sale now, there are so many clubs that will be willing to sell him. But is that a conversation we want to have? Do we want to sell Amad? Is he one of those we want to sell? Because if we put him up for sale, I'm very sure we could command a 45, 50 million pounds for him. We can, but is that what we want to do? Or do we look at him as a player, a potential important player for the future of what we are trying to build at Manchester United? So, a very critical stage. Well, the usage of these players is going to be so important, and we need to keep them happy. And you keep them happy if a player is working hard and he has earned the right to start. You only keep them happy, but by giving them minutes. If we don't do that, they will be frowning again. Now, against Burnley, Amad deserves his full debut. It will be painful for this season to end without Amad making his full debut in the Premier League. It will be difficult to explain that with all the injuries we had, with all the poor performances from individuals we had, a player, Amad Diallo, exciting as he is, did not convince the boss to start even just one game in the Premier League. Think about it. It wouldn't make sense. Would it make sense for you now? Think about him and his representatives, his agent, his family, the people around him. It wouldn't make sense at all. So we need to manage these players right. Otherwise, we might lose some of these good players because of poor decisions, because of trusting certain players who are not delivering, trusting them for way too long. Like we did trust Marcus Rashford for way too long in the hope that he would turn things around, but he didn't. Unfortunately, it only got worse for him. So is Anthony Dos Santos. Again, comes and turns up in moments, but for the most part, he's playing negative football. He's passing more to Wan-Bissaka than he ever does to forward players. He's playing the obvious pass instead of, as a winger, taking on defenses and trying to create things for Man United, open up defenses and create goal scoring opportunities. So that's for me. It's a clear indication that the guy is done. He's short of confidence. So why not trust a player who is showing you promise, who is exciting the supporters. After the game against Sheffield United, I think Amad was the first player to trend on Twitter, even before Bruno was trending. Because clearly, if you watch that game critically, you saw that Amad's impact on the game when he came on was important in the win we had. So why not trust him by rewarding him with more minutes to start? That's what he would want to do. That's a dream for any player who plays football, to start for their beloved club, to be a starter, more so if you've earned it. It's not a favor, he has earned it. So Erik Ten Hag, the ball is in your court, but now it's not just about Erik Ten Hag. The technical director, Jason Wilcox, will be asking him questions, because he has got to account if you're selecting these players, on what grounds are you selecting them? Because Wilcox will be standing there and watching the training, and he's in charge, as much in charge of the football as the boss is. So the boss has got to be accountable to the technical director. So probably this now is the chance for some of these hitherto frustrated players to get their chance, because it's now no longer about Erik Ten Hag pleasing his gang that he signed. Beautiful stuff happening. So those are the slow updates going on at Man United. But there is some bit of sad news when it comes to the transfers that I will dissect in my next video. My name is Webb. Subscribe to the United Hotspot as we do get to build up to a must-win encounter, Man United Burnley. Erik Ten Hag said there are no many except Mason Mount starting. So I think the starting 11 now at this point can be obvious. You expect they're largely the same players who started the game against Sheffield, but I expect Amad to start ahead of Anthony, probably as the only change in this game. My prediction of the game, Man United win 3-1. That's my prediction.